I'm from LA. So,
No, I don't know.
he wasn't.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. My name is Bonnie, and I'm the poetry event coordinator here at Brookline Booksmith. Thank you. Today it is my pleasure to host two wonderful poets, Ariel Yelen and Kathleen Latham, for an evening of poetry. Before I do introductions, I do have just a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, the copies of these two beautiful books are available for sale at the back counter over there. I encourage you to support the poets' work in whatever way you can, whether that means buying a book, following them online, saying nice things to them tonight, and of course, being in this audience is a huge way to show support, so thank you. Also, please know that this event is being live streamed from the iPad right over here. Our audience should not be viewable or seen by our live stream viewers, but if you don't want to be live on YouTube, just don't stand in front of it and you'll be golden. Please also keep your phones off or on silent to respect our readers. And finally, we will have a Q&A at the end of the event, followed by a signing. So hold your questions till the end, but definitely have some ready to go. This event is part of our poetry reading series here at Brookline Booksmith. We do, in addition to sort of fun evenings of poetry like tonight, we also have a monthly reading series called Third Thursday's Poetry. The April event is about to be listed on our website, so feel free to check that out if you're a poetry fan. And now, housekeeping out of the way, it's time for introductions. Kathleen Latham is a poet and short story writer who grew up in Los Angeles and now lives outside of Boston. A highly commended winner of Britain's Bridport Prize, she's also won the Writer's Digest Short Story Competition, the Web Microfiction Prize for Women Writers, and a Bath Flash Fiction Award. Her poetry manuscript, Running Into an X, won second place in Chestnut Review's chapbook contest. Twice nominated for Best Small Fictions and a Best of the Net Award, she's been shortlisted for the Bevel Summers Prize, the Stockholm Writers Festival First Pages Prize, and for contests in such places as Fish Flash Fiction, Reflex Fiction, and Fractured Lit. Her debut poetry collection, The Ones, has been nominated for the Eric Hoffer Book Award, and we are so excited to hear a bit from it tonight. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here. And of course, Ariel Yelen is a writer and editor living and working in New York City. She received the 2023 to 2024 Creative and Performing Arts Fulbright degrees and has received fellowships or grants from the Fine Arts Work Center, Vermont Studio Center, and the Yiddish Book Center, among other honors. Her poems have been published in The Baffler, Social Text, The New Republic, American Poetry Review, Bomb, and elsewhere. She's taught poetry and interdisciplinary courses for Columbia School of the Arts, the Loft Literary Center, and elsewhere. She holds an MFA from Rutgers University, Newark, and serves as the associate editor for Future Poem, where she also edits the blog Future Feed. She is, of course, the author of I Was Working, selected by Rowan Ricardo Phillips for the Princeton Series of Contemporary Poets last year, and selected by the New York Public Libraries as a top 10 book of 2024. We will also get to hear a little bit from I Was Working tonight. Thank you, Ariel, so much for being here. Everyone, this is a delightful collection of work. Please join me in giving our poets a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you to Brookline Booksmith. Thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you to my sister and her family who's watching me on YouTube. So, all right, can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. So, my husband's name is Bob, and the question I get asked most often when people hear about my book is, "Are you and Bob okay?" Because why else would someone who's been happily married for 35 years write a whole bunch of poems about breakups and exes and finding love? So I usually answer that question by saying that I also write fiction. So some of these are very personal. A lot of them started with a kernel of truth and ended up far from that. And some are just other people's stories that I am privileged to tell. That's the simple answer. The more thoughtful answer is that I have four grown children, and two girls, two boys, And I started writing poetry when my two oldest, my daughters, entered high school. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Raising teenagers takes you to this really weird place where you can remember what it was like to be their age, but you're seeing it from this perspective of hindsight. And I found that really ripe for inspiration. So before I knew it, I had a whole lot of poems about breakups and getting your heart broken and that kind of stuff. So originally I thought I was gonna organize them into ways to handle a breakup, but I realized I had a lot of poems about love that lasts. So I took a step back and I thought, okay, these are actually poems about our quest to find the one. But I personally don't think that's the healthiest thought, that there's only one person in the universe for you. That may be true for some people, but I think for most of us it's far healthier to think of the ones plural. And these are people who will come into your life, either teach you something or affect you in some way that you're ready to be taught the next lesson. So thinking of it that way, I divided the poems into the ones who come first, the ones who come next, and the ones who come last. And then they're kind of bookended by perspective sections. So I will start. I'm going to read the first poem in the book. It's the first poem I ever wrote, and it's the first poem that was ever published, and it kind of sets the tone for a lot of what came later. Just gotta catch my breath. This is called On Running Into an Ex-Lover. They shouldn't call it small talk. There are no small sentiments here, rather icebergs to avoid, elephants to ignore, issues of longing and betrayal to navigate. I wonder while we chat how you keep your smile so neutral, your inquiries so perfectly canned. After 5 minutes, I want to thrust my tongue down your throat until your manners are dislodged, but I am deterred by circumstance and this morning's regrettable choice of sweatpants. I laugh too loudly, drunk with the potency of things unsaid, lips that once touched, forced to spew platitudes. Your eyes skitter to the horizon, forgetting me. Goodbye, I think, smiling. When we part, we leave behind a puddle of pretend. The little words we've spoken sink to the bottom, done in by the weight we've asked them to carry. All right, so people tend to belittle first love when it's not their own. But first loves are often quite formative, and first love breakups can be quite brutal. So this is a poem written from a male point of view about that. This is called Enough. There's a moment right before he realizes he doesn't know whose bed he's on or where his left shoe has gone, a tiny cusp of a moment when he thinks he's at the beach and she's beside him and they're lying on a towel holding hands and the waves are crashing, they're crashing, and he's smiling because she still loves him and it's enough. The waves and the sun and the feel of her hand, they're enough. But then he cries, or maybe he laughs, he's not really sure. All he knows is suddenly he's staring at a ceiling he doesn't recognize, and the sound in his head is the incriminating pulse of a morning after. And there's a pain behind his eyes, and a stranger beside him, and a different kind of wave comes crashing over him as he watches that moment get washed away, watches it slip between his fingers with a flash of scales and escape. And then he's just awake and hungover, or maybe still drunk, and he ignores the girl who isn't her passed out beside him, ignores the warning heave of nausea pushing up his throat. His hand fumbles blindly on the floor until it wraps around the cool, smooth neck of a bottle, something to wash the taste away. He raises it shakily to his lips, even though he already knows it will never be enough. So, one of my daughters lost her first love in a car accident when she was 22, and it was devastating to all of us. They'd been together off and on for 8 years at that point. So I wrote this next poem for her a few years later. It's actually written from her perspective, but it's really my feeble attempt to comfort her, if you will. I think it applies to any loss that breaks you. This is called When Your Mother Suggests Scrapbooking as a Form of Therapy. You might want these, she says, holding up a bouquet of flower stickers. Red carnation, purple iris, yellow daffodil. Colors so alive they enrage you. What you want is for grief to be peeled from your skin and stuck elsewhere. Erasure, not remembrance. Not marker nibs rubbing like styrofoam, scraps of memory glued in place, the pretense of containment. But you don't have words to explain this. You don't have words to explain anything. So you ignore her suggestion and go back to your flip book life, plodding feet, flailing arms, the illusion of progress. Until weeks, months, maybe years later, you're standing on a train platform in late December, and the sky is dark, and the wind is biting, and you plunge your hand into the pocket of your coat and pull out an unexpected burst of color, those stupid stickers. And you'll picture your mother in her blue robe and pink slippers, secreting those flowers away for just this moment. And you'll wonder how she knew that healing comes and stops and starts, in thickening scars, in being reminded again and again that there is still color, there are still flowers, there is still love. All right, this next poem is a real change in tone. I'm going to give you a trigger warning because there is a mention of sexual violence. This is in the poem, the section of The Ones Who Come Next, which has a lot of poems about kind of finding your voice and taking back your power. This was written in response to a fill-in-the-blank prompt, the stupidest thing I've ever done. This is called Stupid. I gotta take a walk for this. The stupidest thing I've ever done is ask a stranger in Harvard Square for directions to Whole Foods and then allow him to walk me there on a spectacularly sunny Saturday in August. Okay, well actually, the truly stupidest thing was to accept an invitation to dinner at his apartment that night, which was such a stupid thing that I left a note on my kitchen table with said stranger's name and address on it in case I went missing. As it turned out, I might have been onto something because shortly after the main course, he started to creep me out and I had to listen to my inner voice and leave before dessert and walk home alone in the dark, which I guess should also be added to the list of stupid things that I've done. Maybe just above the time I let a guy I just met into my dorm room, or the time I let another guy walk me into that same room for safety purposes because I thought that was less stupid than walking by myself. To be fair, I thought both guys were quite nice, though maybe that was stupid of me too, since I'm sure Ted Bundy seemed nice to the women who picked up the books he dropped while he was pretending to be on crutches. I suppose to be safe, I could expand the list of stupid things I've done to include talking to strangers under any circumstances. But since most women are killed by those closest to them, maybe it's easier to say that the stupidest thing I've ever done was being born female, because that seems to be what leads to people shoving unwanted things into your private parts, or wrapping their hands around your throat, or chopping you up to bits in their bathtub and leaving your stupid corpse in a ditch or an oil drum or a suitcase weighed down with rocks so that it sinks to the bottom of the Charles River where no one can find you no matter how many notes you leave, and then you're stuck down there while the rest of the stupid females walk by, outrageous and rash in their desire to find love or companionship or a place to buy vegetables and a gallon of milk. I mean, really. Okay, so this next poem I wrote sitting in my car outside of a hockey rink on the North Shore, waiting for one of my son's state playground games to begin. And I was thinking, how the heck did a girl from California end up there? And I was thinking of the concept of multiverses, which is, the idea that other universes exist where all possible outcomes are there. And I'm like, does that mean that somewhere is the California version of me, maybe with my first love, and is she longing for the life I'm living now in the same way that I sometimes long to be back in California? And so this was shortly after my daughter's boyfriend had been killed in a car accident. I'm in a car, so all of this coalesced into this poem, which is really about our first loves and the idea of what could have been. This is called Multiverse. If you had stayed, would we argue about your lousy friends, find fault in each other's choices, ride in silence through a thick black night while we imagine lives that waited elsewhere? Or would there be happiness, dancing barefoot in the kitchen, front porch swing kind of happiness? Would every sun rise upon the two of us entangled in white sheets and certainty? In memory, you're tapping out a rhythm on the steering wheel, mid-verse, mid-song. If only I could reach across and make you stop, place my hand over yours and tell you what's coming. But synchronous time is still merciless time, and even as I hear you, see you, feel you drum that wordless beat, we are hurtling forward, and I can't go back, and all at once, I am here, in the life that waited, in the dark beyond. I am elsewhere, and you are gone. In another world, the two of us shoot onward into the night. Okay, I swear they're not as sad from now on. This is the first poem that I ever wrote for my husband. This is called Cranberry Juice. I should have known you loved me when I got a UTI in a Motel 6 in San Diego, and you went out at 3 in the morning to get me cranberry juice. This was before the days of cell phones or GPS, and I imagine you hunched behind the wheel of your old black Honda, eyes magnified by the glasses you wore only in emergencies, peering out the windshield at block after unfamiliar block of darkened windows and empty streets, parked cars crouched in your periphery, like lumbering beasts come to water at pools of yellow streetlight, and you on the hunt. In my mind, you are the only one awake, prowling the city with windows down to ocean air and far-off moans of hidden ships, seabirds who should be sleeping, trumpeting your arrival, the moment you stumble upon an all-night gas station, an open convenience store, a mega emporium whose 2 bright aisles make you squint at the onslaught of choices. Cran apple, cran raspberry, cran pomegranate, cran grape. So many choices that you begin to question the ones that brought you there, to that city, on that night, with the girl whose cries tore you from your sleep. The truth is, I don't know how you did it, how you do it still. Like so much else, I've never thought to ask. I only remember you appearing beside me on the dingy bathroom floor, a cup of red in your hand as if you had conjured it, like roses from a hat, silk scarf from a sleeve. It took me far too long to understand that sometimes love is a quiet knock on a closed door, offering without being asked, giving without expectation, kneeling on the floor, juice in hand, with no mention of what it took to get there. This poem is called All News Images. I confess to Googling you on occasion, but unless you are an overweight bagpipe player or a 24-year-old hipster with neck tattoos and a bolo tie, I don't think I found you. It's possible, of course, that I stumbled across you a long time ago, but failed to pick you out of the cyber lineup. I have little to go on but memory, and a scattering of yearbook photos, and in these you are ageless, smooth-faced and muscular, down on one knee in your baseball uniform, or rigid and posed in the blazer you borrowed from your older brother. For all I know, you're on my screen right now, staring out at me from the results page, middle-aged and gray, pudgy around the collar, waving your virtual arms. I'm here, invisible in your failure to live up to memory. And what of me? Is it my name you slip into that long, narrow box on nights when yearning and melancholy slink across your desk like restless cats, knocking things over and demanding attention? Would you know me still? Or are you still searching for that girl from the past, the one who knew exactly where she was going and so easily left you to get there? Maybe we come across each other every day and don't realize it. We just keep missing the connection, chasing link after link, seeking a spark of recognition that went out years ago. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'm going to read 2 more. These are all from the Ones Who Come Last section. So a few years ago, my nephew and his fiance asked if I would be willing to write a poem and read it at their wedding. And they were like, just write something about, being married. And I'm like, sure, how hard can it be? Quite hard, actually. So anyone who's tried to write about love or marriage finds it's very hard not to be cliche, right? So I did what most people do, and I just didn't do it until like the week before the wedding, and then in a mad panic. I wrote this during a flight home from Asia. And I will say one cool thing is I put this on my website, And I've offered it up to anyone getting married. And now I do have people reaching out to me saying they've used it at their wedding, which is so cool. So, okay, this is called Again and Again and Again, a wedding poem. When we are young, we move through a world of strangers and wonder when love will come for us. Wonder if and when and how. Let them find me, we whisper to the sky. Let the right one come. And when love does arrive, finally, miraculously, it arrives like a hurricane, a tidal wave, a sudden, overwhelming storm that sweeps us away from where we started, alone on the shore, and delivers us to horizons barely imagined, together. What a gift it is to be found. What a blessing in this world of billions to hold hands and know that you are home. Still, I wish you this. May you carry the memory of searching. May you tuck it in a small, quiet corner of your heart to remind yourself how long you waited for the someone beside you, how cherished they are, how perfect for your heart. May you remember every day something good about each other, something worth fighting for. May you remember what brought you here, to this moment, to this promise to join hands and never let go. Because if falling in love is a hurricane, staying in love requires harnessing the forces of nature. It requires agency, action. Staying in love requires waking every day to say, I choose to see the best in you, even when you are at your worst. I choose to practice kindness and show forgiveness and remember daily how precious you are to me. I choose to stay. If love is the water, be the moon that draws the tide. If love is fire, be the wood that feeds it. If love is a dance, be the music that keeps it going. If love is a choice, make it again and again and again until your last breath. Say, I choose you, my love. Today and every day, I choose you. Okay, I'm gonna finish tonight with one of my favorite poems. I wrote this poem for one of my daughter's friends who for years would sit at our kitchen table and complain that he would never find anyone ever. Cool fact, he did, and they're actually about to have a baby, and I read that last poem at their wedding. So this poem is for anyone who's ever worried that they'll never find love. This is called Advice for Josh on the Last Girl He'll Break Up With. She will talk too much or too little about all the wrong things. She will flirt with your friends, or text you too much, or act as if she's only there because she's doing you a favor. She'll hate Springsteen or the Red Sox. She won't like your cat. She'll be pretty and nice, but mind-numbingly boring. Or she'll be reckless and scary, but good in bed, like an out-of-control carnival ride, all careening lights and screaming brakes and fun while it lasts until she hurts you, or you hurt her, or you both give up at the same time. Or worse, trust me, worse, she will be brilliant and witty and far better looking than you. She'll love your mom and run marathons. She'll feed the homeless and teach Sunday school and donate half her income to UNICEF and half her hair to Locks of Love. She'll be a supermodel pediatric brain surgeon. But still, you will lie beside her late at night and wonder what is wrong with you. Wonder why it's not enough, why she's not enough. And you will stare at your ceiling with the amazing food she has cooked in your stomach, or the carnival ride sex coursing through your veins, and you will numbly follow the changing of the traffic light that shines through your window, red to green to yellow to red, stop, go slow, stop, go slow, and you'll think about settling. Only you won't call it that. You won't use that word because she is pretty and kind, or a thundering roller coaster, and you're waiting to see where it takes you, and settling is so arrogant, right? Like what makes you such a catch, and the light will keep changing, and your doubt will keep growing, and you'll have the inescapable feeling that you're running out of time, or asking all the wrong questions, and just when the weight of uncertainty threatens to crush you, I want you to stop. Stop worrying and wondering and analyzing and guessing, because one day, just around the corner, in your same but different life, promise you, you will meet the woman who comes next. And in that merely now, you will lie in your bed, watching her sleep, her breath a whisper on your cheek, and your mind will be quiet, and your heart will be full. And the only thing the traffic light outside your window will keep track of is your silent prayer to time. Stop, go slow, wait for her, wait for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to Kathleen, maybe another round of I'm going to read from this book called I Was Working, and I'm just going to kind of read straight through. Maybe I'll talk a little bit, but maybe not too much. And you can, if you don't mind, you can hold your applause if you still have it for me until we can be awkward silent together. Has anyone had a job? It's important to know. I was working. My second job was waiting in a window behind the window of the job I was on the clock for. My third job was scheduled for that evening, but not yet confirmed. My fourth freelance job wasn't active per se, but I was actively pursuing clients. After much consideration, or to be more precise, after being forced to act on what I'd been denying for many years, and the feeling of finally acting was like a breath of air, and the air very much like the vacuum left when a train rides next to you, then past you on the subway platform, I decided to quit everything but work. I quit my friends, and quit living with the human I shared a life with, for I was about to quit everything we shared. My meals became quick. I stopped seeing a therapist. That perfectly abstract yet persistent weight on my body and psyche at last let up. It rained. Information became fluid, smooth. I could now fully take on the professionalized work that somehow generated getting and doing more professionalized work, which was the only way out of the perfectly abstract yet persistent weight. It wasn't the more jobs I had, the more money I made. It was the more jobs I had, the more I could work. I didn't have to answer to a therapist about why no pleasure. I could have no pleasure and work. No one needed me because I quit everyone. So my attention could always be split in 4 places at once. My first job, my second, my third, my fourth. At any point, a fifth would come along, automatically multiplying as they tended to. And when I did arrive home, the human I once shared a life with wasn't there to say, "I'm so happy to see you." No one was happy to see me. And so at last I could work. No one said it's okay. It wasn't okay. Thus my work flourished. And though they once loved me, no one reached me. Meanwhile, new platforms continued to make themselves available. So speaking of jobs, thank you again to Bonnie, who's the curator and organizer of this reading, and to Brookline Booksmith. I grew up in the area, but I've never actually been here, so it's really nice to be here. 5 blocks and 3 hours away. The view from the office so stunning it's propaganda. Character named I makes a face like, wow. We talk about nothing, tensely, over a technically continental breakfast. As it turns out, trauma is what we all have in common. But is anyone here worried about the fact that I'm an artist? I grant you permission to love this glistening city. But first it's time to sit down and write about the thing you always write about. While structured desire makes paragraphs of your poems, you write even though there are facts out there that should inspire you to focus on nothing but deleting, nothing but changing your name, Nothing but closing your bank account and joining a militia. This is the glitch I hope to figure out how to live with. They can be like depressing or they can be funny. Depends on where you're at in your work life. Revolution. The new microwave at work has begun to make the most beautiful sound as it finishes cooking. When it first appeared some weeks ago, it was impressively silent while heating food on its circular base. Either someone changed a setting, or it has liberated itself. I've begun singing the alto part in harmony with it when it plays, and I've been adding a note, the minor third, before dropping to the lower fifth to finish the song in unison. Music, under most circumstances, will take desperate measures to come back into your life. The problem with beauty is that it convinces me of achievement. Really, it's just that time has passed. What was green is now orange. This poem compares the seasons and philosophizes beauty in the form of strands. I think I owe my boss a hello. I think I owe him a turkey sandwich. First, I'll dive into Excel, where the cells welcome my touch. I check the boxes. It's classic. It's plain. Life really does make people into poets. Kind of pervy not to be a poet or artist if you think about it. Standing around drinking, but what will you make of it? The contradictions of my life ward off robotic becoming. I think they're worth it. Let's at least agree that being turned into a marble statue is the goal of our labors. I make some interesting progress and follow up. Thanks for your email. Now you can sign off, my child. But be careful not to lubricate the truth. Let beauty commute you. This poem says yes. I like to write it while someone takes me seriously. Little do they know I'm writing the story of our conversation in my mind, in plain speech, nothing frivolous or flowery, no commentary, just details like, then she said, and then I said, and then she said, the soup is actually good. As I write, my cubicle is being cut in half, but I can go home early. That time is finite is the announcement of your life. Note the screensaver, how it displays the unlikely story of a peaceful transition from pristine glacial lake to arid red desert. Meet you at Rainbow Falafel in 30. So I guess we've come to this time of the year where it's appropriate now for me to start reading this poem, which is called A Prayer for Tax Season. May I meet the dean? I work at a university. Does anyone else work at a university? Yeah, so right now, especially this poem. Prayer for Tax Season. May I meet the dean's corporate tactics with the powerful hush of a weeping willow. May I work and be paid despite poor ergonomics and poor economic policy. May I pay my taxes with the ease of 1,000 cherry blossoms raining down. May publicity efforts fail to show us the truth, leaving us to figure it out. The shoulders of poets hurt. May the future stay fertile. The past is gone. And some more taxes. All morning tax evasion. In the subway station, liquid drops on our heads while the F train never comes. Trash overflows outside the Marble University. Utopia is attainable, but pressing on truth where it's tender results in feeling metal bands around your heart snap open. It's pretty hardcore. This poem's about the kind of neglect writing can't solve. No amount of fragments will do. Only being more disgusting. Like, give me something brutal for lunch, like escargot or liquor. So now I'm going to read some poems from the middle section of the book, which is called In Free Time, and it was composed in free time on my lunch break or on my commute, and I gave myself the self-imposed writing constraint of like 5 minutes per poem, 5 syllables per line, and I'll just read them through. They're untitled. Thank goodness people come here, and thank God they leave at some point. Praise be, there's a seat. Oh no, it's taken. Great, it's open now. Scrolling through the news, but my phone screen stops picking up my thumb. News of death and war everywhere except a couple places. Shell of a person with fixed gaze on clock eats robotically. Language of things on repeat while people try to say feeling. The right not to be exposed to what's new. Ads and some info. The bike rack casts the shadow, tattoos a snake onto pavement. Mine eyes are spicy from the screen. My knees are sore from sprinting in platforms across the city to all my things. Everyone on the trains yawning. I try not to. Fun. But it starts to build back in my throat. Inside my ears, it wants to stretch the back head open and take breath in. Like a baby trying not to cry, the worker must yawn. When you're sad, it is a relief to point cursor on corner of cell, then drag it right, light up the page of little white bricks with a square that says, these boxes will live, be copied, pasted, echo in Excel, while others will fade into abstraction. Paper stacks cover books I'd like to read. I put the stacks there to hide them from work, also to hide them from myself, the fear of finding the truth while in cubicle. The printer blinks red, wants my attention. Multiple people have provided me with information regarding the fact that the soup today is actually good. But I'm against the soup. And I'm just gonna read a few more from the last section of the book, which is maybe thinking through work and labor, and it's a little bit outside of the office sometimes, but also it's there. Like this is not in the office, for example. The dynamic of moving a tree stump. A group of us meet in a field to move a stump. Someone brings gloves and hands them out to everyone. Someone says, beautiful stump. The person who needs the stump move says, yeah, it's beautiful, right? Someone else asks, what is this, cedar? No one answers. Someone finally says, looks like it. But the stump has become its own thing. It doesn't seem to be part of the tree family anymore. It belongs to heavy, oversized objects, group projects, things that must be moved, conversations about trees. The person who needs the stump moved says, it might be easier if we roll it. So we roll the stump to the truck. Okay, lift. Okay, hold on, let me get the roots. Okay, you can go to that side. Okay, watch out. Move away. Be careful. After we move the stump to the truck, it turns out there's another place we need to move the stump to. Some people drive in the truck to where the stump needs to go. Others walk. Some of us become committed to getting the stump to its final and proper place. Some of us become less useful. I will end with this one. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here. This is called Wrestling with Narrative Drives Tears Down Cheeks. And the tears flow into the streets where people need to shop. It's not practical. We can't ride boats everywhere. This isn't Venice. It's New York City, baby. This is an office. Today's my birthday. Across the room is a revolutionary, placing donuts on a tray, putting pink roses in a vase. You see, mine's a revolutionary in rose-adjacent life. The cake's dairy-free. Let me cut you a piece.
Wonderful. Let's give one more round of applause to our poets. as I welcome you both up. Thank you both so much for sharing your work. Now it is you, our audience's time to shine. So if you have questions for our poets, feel free to raise your hand. But I also do have a nice little warm-up question that I like to ask as you all are thinking. So something that we talk a lot about here at Poetry Readings is craft. We have a lot of folks who are writers who join us. And every poet that has ever been here has a little bit of a different story about their process and a little bit of a different relationship to their creative process. So I'd love to open up the conversation with you both just speaking a little bit to process.
Want to see these?
Yeah, you can just flick it up and it should turn on.
Oh, do I turn it
Hi.
on?
What's my process?
Yeah, or your relationship to it.
I think I realized that I'm like a site-specific poet. I just maybe try to be like normal and writing about like be able to write whenever, but I think that I have to trick myself into it. And for this book at least, I had to pretend that I was, or maybe not pretend, but I think I only realized halfway through writing it that I was writing a book. And I don't know, maybe I have to work on this answer. For now, I'm a site-specific poet. I think I have to trick myself into working on a project.
It's a hard question to answer. I think for me, because I bounce between a lot of genres, I think it's harder for me to figure out what I'm writing, like what form it's meant to be. So the initial idea will come, as most writers get it, just like as a gift from wherever it comes from. You know, usually for me it's like the first line or a line that I can't get out of my head. And then I have to decide, is it a narrative or is it a poem? You know, and so if it's a poem, I find the first part of the writing really easy, and then when I'm freaking slow at is the revision part. I can obsess a good month or two over a comma. Like I'm really slow. So for me, the craft part, I struggle more with the end part because I just really overthink things. But I don't know if that's the kind of answer you're looking for. So I guess, there you go.
Perfect. And now, anyone from our audience have any questions for either of our poets? Yeah, go right ahead.
This is my first poetry reading.
Woohoo!
Thank you so much. One of the things that comes to my mind, I'm not very deep here. Do you often think about whether your poems should or should not have any rhyme associated with them? There's syncopation associated with them, but there's no rhyme. And is that the traditional way of modern poetry, or is there an integration of that or not? I'm just trying to educate myself.
Yeah, there's different forms of poems.
Use the microphone.
There's different forms, so you can write in a form that rhymes, or you could write in a different form that doesn't rhyme. I think a lot of contemporary poetry doesn't rhyme, but then there are a lot of contemporary poetry that does take up that project. I think rhyming is cool.
Do you ever integrate? I mean, is there a process of integration? Not you. I'm just talking about.
One definitely does.
Okay.
Do you?
I don't like rhyme. I'm not a fan of poetry that rhymes, because to me it does feel really old-fashioned. It's very hard to do well, so I can't do it. But like, the people that do rhyming poetry really well amaze me. I'm not one of them, and so I tend to, like, when I hear poets who are rhyming, it's usually beginner poets, and it's like high school kids, and that's what they
Yeah.
think a poem has to have. I agree that I think it's the form, like